just a little bit broken inside, and some of us use different coping mechanisms to deal with the depression and or anxiety that tends to follow very stressful situations we face day to day in our lives. On today's episode, this being episode number 16, it'll just be me talking. And I'm going to openly discuss my battle with depression and anxiety in my late teens and early 20s, and how I used a fitness routine and a change of perspective as my catalyst to help me overcome this harrowing disease, away from any form of substance abuse and antidepressants. Fitness and personal development and shifting mindset on life were all major players on my road to recovery. And now I can rejoice in knowing that I now get paid to help lead and inspire others to help change their own lives, while developing a physique they can be proud of as a byproduct of their own discipline and dedication. So to take you all back to where it all began, I have always been a fit kid. I was never a fat kid, but I was a big tomboy growing up. I played sport all through primary school and high school. I was always a sports captain or in some form of leadership role growing up. Suffice to say, inspiring others was something that always came pretty naturally to me. On the other hand, by the age of 16, I started to develop a very deep and dark depression. At what level, I couldn't tell you, as I never really had anything properly diagnosed, but by the age of 17, I tried to take my own life. Thankfully, I was unsuccessful and have since dedicated my entire life to becoming a better person, a more knowledgeable, spiritually insightful, and a humble and grounded human being. A person that only I can be truly proud of as I try to get 1% better every single day. So the story is, I had developed a very obsessive, unrequited love for a young straight girlfriend of mine, which began at the age of 11 until the age of 16, who at the time I was unable to express my feelings towards her in massive fear of rejection and embarrassment. These days I just go for whatever I want, but back then, being a young kid and not knowing any better, I bottled up all of my emotions and ended up becoming so unwell mentally that it was almost crippling to walk outside without getting the sweats and having my heart race a million miles an hour. Anything socially was a real mission, and I just developed a fear of crowds. And I remember one night we had to leave my sister's boyfriend's at the time 21st birthday because I had suffered a massive anxiety attack. And I just remember begging my mum to leave as I couldn't catch my breath and the room was spinning. And I really hated myself for making my family leave, but they did, as they could see what sort of shape I was in. It's very easy to talk about this now, but back then I just couldn't make sense of it. Yet at the same time, battling day to day with my emotions was all I knew and very much my normal, which I absolutely despised and thought there had to be a better way in life. At the age of 23, I'm not sure what came over me, but I had enough of the partying scene. I was tired of smoking, sick of late nights. I never really was a big drinker. Occasionally I'd smoke the odd joint because of external peer pressure. But again, it was becoming a very redundant lifestyle for me and I was ready to overhaul my life. So I joined my first gym on my own, and back in those days, Phoenix Fitness was a commercial chain which opened up at Water Gardens Shopping Centre in Taylors Lakes. And I became a foundation member. I was super excited. I got my red backpack, my drink bottle and my first gym towel, and mentally I was ready for this new journey. Prior to taking on this fitness journey, I really started to dive into personal development, which I've done so way before it became a mainstream thing. I was only 16 at the time when I got into it all, and I'm now 33. And I would read positive affirmations, and I was also given a book for my birthday called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay. And back then I had a few close friends who knew what I was going through and were quite supportive. So I felt I had enough mental fortitude to change my life and start afresh. I still had major anxiety going to the gym, and for the first couple of years, some days I had to psych myself up and sit in the car for a good 5 minutes before I could walk inside. It's that feeling like everyone's staring at you as soon as you walk in, and you shit yourself at all the buff daddies walking around pumping iron, or the really pretty stuck-up girls with their perfectly long hair and makeup as if the gym was a beauty contest. But in reality, we're all just a little bit broken inside, and particularly those who train. I'm a really strong believer that people who all train usually started from a place of weakness or insecurity and have just developed the confidence from the actual journey along the way. Nobody is born super confident. So the first 3 years or so, I was training anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, a mixture of weights and cardio, and I had help from a trainer called Shane Pace, who helped write me up a free program and updated it a few times for me. Otherwise, I would download programs online and create my own workouts. I avoided compound movements back then because I didn't really understand how to do them, but I did a lot of free weight and machines back then. And I remember my mum turning around to me one day and said, "Gee, you really have found your passion, haven't you?" And yeah, she was right. I fell in love with the process as I started to feel different. My confidence had blossomed in a way that I could have only ever have dreamt of in my teens. You see, I was that sort of person that started and never finished things, such as courses, jobs, even friendships or lovers. Nothing held enough meaning in my life for me to see things through. I guess I'm very much an all or nothing kind of girl. But I never wanted to be known forever as a Jackie of all trades and master of none, as my mum used to put it. As no one else in my family at the time was really into training, it inspired me even further to prove to others and to myself that I didn't need anyone else to help me succeed with my newfound love. I started to carry myself differently, and people were noticing me. I stopped putting my head down, and I actually started to be the one to intimidate people. I started noticing both men and women noticing me when I'd walk into a room, and I thought, I could really use this to my advantage someday. In a good way, of course. Do you know how awesome that felt? I started mixing with all kinds of people, but the caliber of people started to get better and better, more on my wavelength. I started to see everyone as equals, and I stopped putting others on a pedestal like I was less than them. None of this would have happened if I didn't just bite the bullet and force myself out of my comfort zone, where I really grew as a person and started to develop life skills that would help me to inspire those around me, but ultimately help me live my best life every day, regardless of what sort of a day I was having. There really is power in facing your fears and doing what's hard so life becomes easy. When you settle for what's easy, life is always going to be hard. After I started to get bored with weights, I needed a new challenge. I really wanted to give up smoking, and I remember doing a pad work session with a trainer at Phoenix Fitness one night, and I just remember how out of breath I was. And I thought, what a brilliant way to help me quit smoking and get even fitter. So I put it out to the universe that I wanted to take up boxing, and lo and behold, 2 days later, a man by the name of Igor came into the salon that I was working at the time, which was Hair House Warehouse in High Point. Whilst making conversation with him, as you do as a hairdresser, Igor mentioned that he ran his own boxing sessions from home and that I was welcome to come along. I took it as a sign from the universe that my prayers had been heard, and I jumped on the opportunity. Back in 2011, Igor had a decent little home set up and didn't charge us a single cent. He had a family business called Steve's Wheels in Sunshine, where he made his money and pursued his passion for boxing at night. After the very first session, I couldn't walk for a whole week. Every part of my body was absolutely aching. But during that time, I struggled to breathe and keep up in that very first session. And I did not hesitate to quit smoking the very next day, to which I never looked back. Back then, there would be around 5 to 8 of us on any given night, and I was the only girl. We endured some of the toughest sessions in that garage. It really did change my life. These days, Igor runs Lions Den Academy in the western suburbs of Melbourne in 2 locations. From extremely humble beginnings, this man now inspires plenty of men, women and children daily. I'd have nightmares about smoking again, to the point where I'd wake up in a cold sweat and think to myself, did I start smoking again? I really did love who I was becoming, so much so that I started to discover just how mentally strong I was. Boxing was not only a test of physical strength, but I just remember Igor hammering it into our heads about how our opponent does not give a shit how tired we are, and that their number one goal is to knock us out of the ring. I think this kind of message resonates heavily outside of the ring also. After 6 months, I moved on to a new trainer. Igor said I still wasn't ready for my first fight, and I thought I knew better. I didn't stick things out, remember? I was used to jumping ship very quickly. And oh boy, did karma come back to slap me in the face really hard. So I found a new trainer at Brunswick Doherty's gym while training there one night, and I met a man called Colin who took me under his wing after he offered to hold the pads for me. So he must have seen some potential in me, and we agreed that we would meet each other 5-6 nights a week. So Colin was somewhat of a loner. I mean, he knew everybody, everyone was nice to him, but he kind of had that overly optimistic outlook on life, only the kind that came from a man who fought many disappointments and hardships. So his message was always a cold, hard dose of reality whenever he spoke. Very honest, there was nothing fake about him, and I appreciated him for who he was. I never cared about a person's status, just to know they were a good person. At Igor's gym, I started to feel a bit outnumbered by the rest of the boys, like I wasn't as important or something because I was a female. But, as the years went on, nothing could be further from the truth. The one thing I love about Igor is he never brags about what he's built, even until this day. And just for the record, I'm back training at his facility in Kialba here in Melbourne. Back to Colin. So Colin prepped me for 2 fights. He pumped my tyres up so high, I thought I was going to be the next champ. He said all the right things to me, made sure he trained me hard, the old school way, and along the way, we developed a really nice brother-sisterhood kind of friendship. No bullshit, just the honest kind. That was it. In the boxing community, sure, you had shady characters, but nobody beat you around the bush. Nobody gave a shit how you dressed. People just cared how much heart you had. The kid has heart was a common term used amongst the boxing community as a term of endearment for someone of good character inside and out of the ring. I managed to fight 2 fights as an amateur boxer in 2011 and 2012. It seems like a drop in the ocean, but the amount of personal growth I developed to get ready for those 2 fights was enough to last me a lifetime. I lost my second fight because Colin had lost his voice the night before after he took a last-minute request to corner a pro-girl fight. I was absolutely gutted after 3 months of my hardest work, and this guy was relishing the spotlight and glory of taking the corner for an Aussie world title fight. At that point, I felt like I meant nothing to him. But I gave you more time than I gave my own family, I thought. A boxing coach without a voice is like fighting in the ring blindfolded. Your coach is a second pair of eyes with a full view of what's really happening in the ring during the rounds. After the fight, I took off to Thailand for 8 days with my sister, and when I came back, I went to see Colin at the gym. I'm not going to lie, it kind of felt awkward, like I was still pissed off at him. But I put on a brave face and I gave him a couple of singlets from Thailand, and he thanked me. And then he gave me some bullshit excuse about how he couldn't train me no more because he felt I was too unfit to fight. After that, I never did step in the ring. I completely lost the eye of the tiger. I moved around the traps to different coaches after that, but it was just never the same. I so badly felt like a moron for leaving Igor, knowing he had my best interests at heart. It wasn't until mid-2018 that I reached out to him online, my heart beating out of my chest, begging for his forgiveness and complimenting his achievements since our last departure. He openly welcomed me back into the gym, and just like old times, he trained me like a motherfucker. So it was around 2013, we'll backtrack again, and I was starting to fish for a new goal, more of a physique goal. This time, I felt I got from boxing what I needed. I developed the mental fortitude and the inner fight to keep working hard well and truly after I wanted to give up. I developed fierceness about me, like nothing could stop me anymore. But now I wanted to build the body of my dreams. I wanted to sculpt my physique like a Marvel Comics superhero, to be the quintessential Wonder Woman, the epitome of strong, feminine, a very well-postured woman, perhaps even be slightly intimidating in a good kind of way. So I signed up with an online coach and had my sights on my first comp back in 2014. I had to go against what I knew at the time, as in cut out all forms of cardio, manipulate my body composition through caloric and macronutrient control, and lift weights 5 days a week. Food was never a huge focus with boxing, as I always maintained my weight at the time. Before lifting weights, I used to sit around 68 kilos. Now I sit around 72 kilos when I'm not dieting. Cutting out the cardio at first took me weeks to adjust to, until my coach Erin had to yell at me. I went from running 5Ks 5 days a week to zero cardio. I really don't love it these days unless it's something I enjoy, such as boxing. So in this process, my physique really started to grow. I started to develop wider lats, bolder shoulders, and a bit more booty. I never became up myself like a lot of girls become when they're prepping for a show. I just enjoyed the size I was gaining and potentially a bit of the attention I was gaining also. For someone who used to be riddled with self-doubt and fear, this newfound confidence had amazing benefits to my life. My energy and those around me would benefit from my positivity. I never did compete, as I wasn't ready back then to tackle a long stint of uncontrollable hunger for a plastic trophy. But I gained the experience and discipline of meal prepping, sticking to a progressive resistance program, and how to get into a caloric deficit to drop body fat. But more importantly, how to maintain what I had worked hard for all year round. So from the years of 2014 to 2017, I acquired another online coach. Got amazing results in 12 weeks, did a few photo shoots where I dieted just enough to get lean enough for the shoot, but nothing too extreme, until I hit another plateau and needed a new challenge. When I started as a full-time strength and conditioning coach back in 2016, I trained as normal because it was very much a part of my normal operating everyday system. In late 2017, I signed up with my now coach, Jacob, from JPS Health and Fitness, and had my sights set on a whole new goal, which was powerlifting. I just needed that competitive edge again, something to help inspire myself and my clients to acquire new coaching skills of how to properly set up and execute the squat, bench and deadlift. Last year I competed 3 times in powerlifting, and whilst I placed 3rd in my first show and no placings in the subsequent shows, it gave me back some fire to keep training for a goal again. It also helped elevate my business to a whole new level, as I was able to translate the process of getting to the platform through my coaching efforts. I started to behave differently as a coach. I was less casual in my communication approach, and I delivered my knowledge in an even more educational way, easily translated by clients. Don't get me wrong, I'm no stiff screw when I coach, but I'm always on guard and aware of the things I say. Much of this came from Jacob's influence as a coach and the time I spent with him coaching one-on-one, and I could see the way that people would hang off everything he would say because of the way he carried himself, and I really admired that. Now in 2019, I've decided to set my sights on the bodybuilding stage alongside Jacob again, with hopes to compete in September later this year. The dieting process started in January, so we're well and truly on our way into a very healthy dieting phase. And I want to showcase my many years of muscle maturity and prove to myself that I can succeed through a very tough mental challenge, one that I wasn't prepared to do back in 2014. I'm not going to lie, I am a little scared, but I guess it's only because I want to blow my competition off that stage and present a pretty flawless physique. In summary to all of this, confidence comes in many layers. You don't simply acquire it and stop doing the necessary uncomfortable work in life to ensure you're constantly growing as a person. Suffice to say, fitness as a whole saved my life. I'm not sure where I would have ended up had I not invested in myself every single day and got very uncomfortable all of those years ago. I hope for you listeners out there that true transformation begins and ends outside of your comfort zone. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, never ever give up when times get tough, and smile in the face of adversity. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you liked the content, please make sure you support the show by giving us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you are the first to know when a new show is being released. I am trying to get up a new show every single week, as I'll continue to bring on interesting guests within the fitness industry who can only bring a lot of value to our listeners. If you're wanting to learn more about coaching with myself, please visit my website at divinephysiquescoaching.com. Thank you once again, and we will catch you on the next episode.